Badger don't care. Honey Badger don't give a shit. It just takes what it wants.
Hey, good morning, good evening, and whatever else it might be, wherever you're listening to this from, and welcome to the Anger Show, episode 2.
We made it to number 2.
Yes, finally. Boy, has it been a hot minute, because we recorded episode 1 and expected to go back to our 2-week schedule, and that didn't work.
No, yeah. I mean, life happened. I got sick. Bill had to go save the world. You know.
Yeah. And I broke my foot.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
It's the craziest stupid. The very bottom of my foot, you know, the part that you step on is where I cracked it transversely. Ooh. And I did this like in the late 80s in the military. And every year when it gets cold, it cracks again. Ugh. And it's just so annoying. And it's like they can't put a plate on it. Mm-hmm. They can't, put screws or anything. And the guide now is talking about maybe doing surgery to put this mesh around it that will heal into it and make it stop doing that. But we'll see.
Have you just requested a bionic foot? I mean, at this point.
Yes. Could you please, invest that $6 million in me and let me run like an idiot? And, I love the bionic man. He had the bionic legs, the one bionic arm. He was always lifting this stuff. His back would have shattered. His back was not bionic. When you're lifting up the Hoover Dam, let me tell you something, your back's going to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's way off. Holy shit. Anyway, this is the show about Conquest.
Oh, yeah.
From Parabellum Games. And it's rather appropriate because a lot of stuff has happened over the last month in the Conquest world. All of it really crazy good. So we're going to be doing the getting started playing Conquest and give you the ideas and where to go and what to buy and who to think and what to talk to and how to play me and, lose to me, because that should be your goal. Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, long-term fans of the show know we've talked about this on and off a lot. But this is going to be a much more concise, condensed version of what Conquest is and how to get there. Because Bill and I have been at it for a bit, so we actually know what we're talking about this time.
Yes. We can claim expertise in. It is such a fun game, such a great game. And I never thought I would ever go back to rank and flank wargaming. And then read the rules to this and went, wow, really good.
Yep.
And the way the company reacts to feedback and the way they build the world is it's so worth our time.
And you're getting some of the best sculpts on the market now.
Oh, yeah.
Every single new release is the next level. So
yeah, and if you want to play Trench Crusade and you don't look at a lot of the Conquest models as, hey, that could be X, you're silly.
Yes.
Because they really fit in great.
Oh, yeah.
So I do want to throw a shout out to all those folks caught up in the California wildfires, the gamers out there that have lost everything. There are charities out there. I will try to get links to them in the show notes. There are charities that are designed to help gamers who have literally lost years worth of collections to the fires. So just keep those people. It is such a hellish nightmare. So many people lost their stuff.
Yeah. And
that is a damn shame. Also want to throw a shout out to all the folks out at LVO that concluded last weekend. Had we recorded last weekend, it would have been much more appropriate. But LVO came and went. A good time was had by all. I talked to a bunch of people that went out there, and it looked like a really slick thing. I do want to throw out a personal shout out to Mr. Scott Reed, who is stepping down from running the AOS events out there at the LVO after he's been there since LVO began. And in those first couple of years, it was Scott and Elric and myself that ran all the AOS stuff. And then, Scott ran it. We were his little whipping boys doing whatever he wanted us to do. I don't mean to say we ran it. He ran it.
You ran for him.
Yes, whatever he needed. Coffee, Mr. Reed? Yes, sir. A beer, Mr. Reed? Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah, so we were suck-ups. Get over it. We got the cool shirts. But yeah, Scott is stepping down, and like I said in the Facebook, I'm sure his absence will be sorely felt. But he feels like it's time. It's in good hands now with the new folks taking over, and it's time. He's poured a lot of energy and sweat, and he made it look easy. He made a 300 to 400 person tournament look like it was super easy to run.
Yeah,
and if you know what a tournament like that is, it's not easy. You are constantly dealing with issues. And even with Frontline Gaming behind you, and you have those crates and crates of terrain, and it's still the setup. It's still getting all the scenarios figured out, making sure everybody has an opportunity and a good time. And you heard there were very rarely issues in the running of the actual tournament itself.
Yeah.
Mostly because Scott was very direct and very forthright with people. If you were doing something wrong or iffy, he would just take you aside and say, "Hey, no, none of that stuff."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's those folks out there are going to miss his leadership, I am sure, but a big shout out to Scott Reed for taking on that burden all these years and helping me when it was my turn to do the narratives out there, and his help in getting extra terrain and tables and making sure I had the stuff that was actually designated to be mine. He was amazing. Just great guy.
Sounds like he got the $6 million man's bionic back that he was missing. Yeah. Because he had to carry that whole thing on his shoulders.
Oh yeah. He's definitely $6.5, $7 million guy.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Also in other Conquest news, I'll hit this out right now. As we said, Conquest is a rank and flank game. When you buy boxes, you usually get either like 3 brute and or cavalry models in a box, or 12 guys of a unit in a box. They sit on usually 3 stands, and it's a real pain in the butt to move them individually. So I went in and 3D printed a whole bunch, enough for 2 people to bring any kind of an army to a game. Movement trays, and they're kind of interesting the way Parabellum does, because the game is also a skirmish game. You can pop the guys right off the stands and make them be individuals in First Blood. You can't just glue these guys down to the big 4-man stands. So moving them becomes problematic as things fall off and spears interfere with each other, bows interfere with each other. It all, it's rank and flank. It always happens. But the movement trays actually just sit underneath the 4 stands or 3 stands or however big you're going to make your formation. If you make it 6, I've got a movement tray for you. And they just have the little nubs that stand up and hold the stands in place. I did a whole bunch for city states for the cavalry, the 2-man stands.
Nice.
Yeah, so whatever flavor you need is going to be in the STL, and you'll be able to print it out. And if for some reason there's something I missed, let me know. I also have a bunch of, or a single character stand, which has the character hole in the middle so that it actually looks about normal instead of using one of the 4-man stands and just tossing a character in one of the corners. So yeah, that always looked silly. So those will be made available to patrons on the Patreon. So other than that, do we have anything else for the intro, sir?
Nothing else for intro. We got a lot to talk about in the new stuff coming up because of the reveals in LVO, and we got quite a bit to talk about in hobby.
And yeah, I'm going to hijack the very beginning of our new stuff because there's a product out there that I am just flabbergasted by. So anyway, we'll be right back with new stuff.
The world has gotten even stranger than you already know.
At this point, I doubt anything would surprise me.
$10 says you're wrong.
Okay, bam, we are back. We are fed. We've had breakfast. It's time to talk about the new stuff. And I told Josh I was going to hijack the beginning of this.
And you did, and for a good reason.
Yeah, because I have the world's coolest product, and I don't care who you are. This thing is cool.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So what I'm talking about is the Squad Sprayer. It is quite literally called the Squad Sprayer. You can get it on Etsy. I will have a link to the Etsy shop for you to buy one of these for your very own self. And by God, you need to go out and get one of these. What is it you say? Well, it's a painting handle. And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, oh, shucks, GW sells painting handles. Yeah. So just imagine an exceedingly comfortable to hold painting handle that has room for 5 miniatures. And in fact, there's 5 platforms on this thing for you to hobby tack miniatures to. What makes this thing so amazing is that there is on each end and in the centers, there are little knobs that you can turn. And what they do is they rotate all the platforms. So when you are base coating or perhaps priming your models, and if you have spent any time in New Mexico or the desert Southwest, where you've always laughed at other people because you can pretty much prime outside all year long.
Yep.
This year has been the exception to that.
True. It's true.
We've had very few days since January 1 where the temperature's been high enough that you could go outside and reasonably expect a prime to work.
Correct.
So I've been priming everything with my airbrush. And having this squad sprayer and the ability to just sit there and hold it in my hand and very comfortably spin the models around as I'm hitting them with the primer, this thing is a game changer. And it sounds silly, but honestly, go to Etsy, look at the squad sprayer. It's amazing. It is, and it's not expensive, not at all. The engineer for this, Dominic Ballone, he's just looked at a problem that he had and said, I can fix that, and did it in the most elegant and beautiful way possible. It's just awesome. I swear by this product. It's sitting right in front of both of us, and yes, it is awesome. Go out there and buy one. You will not regret it. Even if all you're going to do is base coat.
Yeah.
Even with rattle cans, it makes it so much easier. So much easier.
I could see also too, if you have a really good like batch painting process that you're doing.
Yeah.
This thing is prime for it.
Oh, it really is. Yeah. If you're doing all of that, hey, I'm going to be putting just the base coats down on this group of kill team models.
Yeah.
This thing's going to save you 10, 15 minutes across each model. And
yeah.
when you think about it, that's a couple hours over the span of and that's impactful. It really is.
If you can get your models on the table a couple hours sooner than you would otherwise, that's significant.
Yeah. I love it. It's one of those products where the engineering is perfect. It does what it says on the tin. It doesn't try to do more. It doesn't try to be all things to all people. It does what it does perfectly well. So run out and buy one. It's the Squad Sprayer, all one word, on Etsy. I will have the link in the show notes. Please just run out there and order. And it ships really fast, and it's really well protected. And he even sends you what I thought was crazy is there's a little thing of the squares of tack putty so that you can just immediately use it out of the box. Yeah, it's just perfect. Just awesome. So yes, I am over the moon about that thing. So the other elephant in the room. You want to hit this one?
What, the GW preview?
Yeah.
So LVO, they went and announced a whole bunch of things across the main games, except for one.
Yeah.
There's one that was noticeably absent, right? So we'll get this out of the way. No kill team.
I get that they just released the new kill team and maybe it was too soon, but honestly, for a game that's hitting like gangbusters, to have 0 releases, any information. Okay, good job, guys. Good job.
Yeah, it's interesting. It could have been a prime time for it, but they were announcing some big other things. I mean, I think that really the Emperor's Children announcement was like the big. So yeah, they announced that. But no one cares about Emperor's Children, so moving on. I'm kidding. I have a whole rant about that after dark. But the Soulblight stuff for AOS, right?
Yeah.
Wow. The sculpt on the Prince. Holy crap.
Jeez. I mean, yeah. They did some absolutely bonkers work to recapture that aesthetic and reinforce it. And, you saw it kind of with the Crimson Court for Underworlds, with that really cool look. And now they've just said, let's do that to the faction across the board, and it's gorgeous. It's really nice. What I like about that is they're basically taking all my old models and making them good again.
Yeah.
So, I have enough Terrorgeists to choke a horse because my first year list at the very first LVO was a death list, which back in those days, keeping in mind that you could do just about anything you wanted. And my list was, a Terrorgeist and a, what's his name? The other dragon. Hello. Okay.
Zombie Dragon?
Thank you.
Royal Zombie Dragon? Yeah.
Royal Zombie Dragon. Yeah. And I mean, they could just go all across the board, breathing fire, doing all kinds of wonderful things. And then over the years, they've just literally kept knocking them down to where they were ineffective monsters at best.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you had that absolute abortion time during the last edition when if you ran monsters, you were the laughing stock because everything killed monsters.
Yep.
The single miniature unit could take down a giant. So
yeah, I mean, it was such a weird time, right? In AOS, we've lamented about this in the previous podcast, but I mean, like, hey, we're making monsters cool. Except in making monsters cool, we make it so everything kills monsters easy,
super easy.
You're like, oh,
yeah,
why? But I mean, one thing I absolutely love, and like, it's definitely more realized as they're really pushing Soulblight, right? Is that they looked, I think, essentially back at that like Gary Oldman Dracula armor.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They're like, this is the inspiration for it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Let's make that happen. So now that they're dropping, it's Vordry, right? Is his name?
Yeah.
Prince Vordry. Like just fully realized in that moment, And the Crimson Court, unfortunately, like it felt like such a limited run that there wasn't a ton of those models around.
Yeah.
So bringing it back into the forefront now with the Prince, I was like, thank goodness that they're actually like realizing this way and where other people have access to it, Yeah. Otherwise, you just had like the dinky little vampire with bat hair, right?
Yeah. It was kind of very much of a letdown in the faction, and now the glow up is complete.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful setup. And I'm seriously looking forward to that battle tome and those model releases because, that goes back to my first love is Death in AOS.
Yeah.
And honestly, I have been just not disappointed by, but unimpressed by the way Death is playing lately.
Yeah.
And, let's hope for this as a glow up. And this is my favorite of the factions. I love my Night Haunt. Don't get me wrong. But I've never really been all that jazzed about Flesh Eaters and Osiarch Bone Reapers. Just the way they are the yo-yo faction of AOS in that they're either really good or they're so average it hurts. So,
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, because, like when skeletons are strong, they are just, dealing with them is horrendous, because it's usually, oh man, yeah, I killed like half the unit. They're back.
Yeah.
So. And then the other side of it is that like they just don't do anything, they'll just dirtle up and not even really hold a point,
Yeah.
But I'm really hoping that they get a nice shot in the arm with this release.
I think they will. I think they're hitting their stride with figuring out how the rules interact with each other, and they're talking amongst themselves to make sure. So I have high hopes for the Soulblight stuff.
Talking about high elves for Old World.
Yay! I'm actually kind of super jazzed about this.
Oh yeah,
because some of those older models are actually quite handy for using in games like Oathmark.
Okay.
And other games, it's so I'm not going to play Old World, but I will probably be picking up a box or two of these just to have elf infantry for Oathmark campaigns.
Okay.
Because they really fit in. They're just gorgeous for that purpose. And, these are the high elf models. If they are still the same old molds, they're dead easy to build. You just clip everything off the sprues and then start throwing glue until you get an elf. So, I mean, it really is simple.
Yeah.
They weren't something you had to think about, which is cool.
Yeah. And then if you're feeling really spicy about it, you can buy an entire elf army and to celebrate the birth of AOS, melt it down, right? We'll just put that.
I need to find that video and just.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
Lord.
So when we have AOS's next anniversary, we're going to have the high elves we need in order to
burn,
to melt down, to form the foundation of, the different realms.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, my God. Yeah, and then also random Brace Shaman.
Yeah, for the Beastmen in Old World. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? You have the model. You have everything you need. Just put it out there for Old World.
Yeah.
I like it. So Necromunda got a shot in the arm with the Ash Waste Nomads.
Yep.
Dang. Cool looking. Really cool looking.
Oh, yeah. Their Necromunda releases have just hit and hit and hit, every single time they've been pushing them out. So, I'm really glad to see it's over the last, 3-ish years, sort of the resurrection of Necromunda. They're actually putting some love into it.
Yeah.
And I think that all the Necromunda players who kind of felt like off to the wayside have just been reinvigorated.
Yeah.
By the releases they're doing, and each time they hit. So I think that they're just going to keep that ball rolling, and I'm glad that even though Kill Team wasn't part of this LVO, the Necromunda got something. So
yeah, and it's kind of, I start looking at some of the other games in the GW lineup that aren't the mainstays, and I think they have sort of made up their minds that they're not going to gauge everything about these systems on pure sales. It's going to be more along the lines of put the product out there, and at some point it will go off the shelf.
Yeah.
And you have factions of the community that are truly into some of these games.
Oh yeah.
And when you let them die on the vine, looking at you, Warcry, what are you telling your player base?
Yeah.
You're telling them that, I know GW is built around FOMO, but at the same time, this is a different world we live in, and purse strings are getting a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
And to sit there and say, I'm not going to support you if you don't reach X amount of sales, that's Hasbro level bullshit.
Yep.
And honestly, if you want to model yourself after one of the worst run companies in the world, go for it, but it's not going to pay off in the end. You keep putting stuff out, like this latest version of Kill Team is off the hook the best they've done.
Yeah.
Kill Team wise.
Oh yeah.
Beefing up Necromunda like they have, you've reinvigorated a game system and it's getting played. There is content out there that you can find for Necromunda that is off the hook.
Oh yeah.
And so it is supported. Your stuff will sell. I'm not saying you need to make 100,000 boxes of all of these things, but a good print run, it probably won't sit on the shelves forever. So good on you, GW, for pushing that stuff.
I do have to say with, Necromunda, I think that if they were to reinvigorate, or I should say reboot Mordheim, they would get a substantial number of Necromunda players over to some AOS style.
Yes.
And I think that would be a really smart move for them.
To me, it's not a question of if, it's when. They have to be working on the new Mordheim simply because there is Mordheim just had a 25th anniversary.
Yeah. And
they had so much interest generated across that Reddit and across all the different Discords and what have you. There was such a huge community that is still playing that old game.
Yep.
And they have to be looking at that and going, we took a chance with the old world and it paid off. You got to know they're working on something for Mordheim. It just makes sense. And with all the AOS models you have available now, you don't have to redo anything.
No, and particularly with the Witch Hunter style models that they've got. Hello.
I mean,
it's right there.
Yeah, obviously we're not saying anything groundbreaking here. The new Mordheim is on the way. Maybe this year, maybe next year. We'll find out, but I guarantee you it's coming.
Yeah, they're going to get a lot of my money when that happens.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be an inordinate amount of money because, oh God, Mordheim was so much fun. Right. As long as they don't ruin what was beautiful about it, and that was the campaign system and how smoothly it integrated. But moving on to more new product, 30K got a new robot for the Mechanicum, and I kind of tuned out during that portion.
Hey, I kind of did too, because I have had this real problem, a sincere problem, where I want to buy all the 30K Mechanicum. I just freaking love those models. 1950s space robots from outer space.
Yes.
And it's just scratching that itch where I used to watch Sci-Fi Channel when I was a kid. And just like, don't look at it. Don't look at it, Josh. Don't do it. Don't do it. But just, oh God, it's been so hard.
Yeah, I know.
Not to buy them.
They do have this amazingly good look.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And, 30K Mechanicum is certainly not the 40K version.
Oh, completely different.
Yeah, if you're looking at the videos about how 40K Mechanicum is so bad right now, that's not what happens in 30K. So
yeah. And I mean, if you want to, you can make them Dark Mechanicum. It's that easy.
Yeah, it's, hello.
Hello.
So easy.
Yeah, it's
in the 40K world. The new Nurgle Lord of Poxes came out. Overall, I was meh. However, you have a
yeah. So at first blush, looking at the model, I'm like, okay. And then they show the freaking sword on his back, and I was like, okay, can I just get the sword, please? Did Death Guard need something new? No, but
No.
There's a really cool sword, and I think it should actually exist in AOS.
It's an AOS sword
On a special Blight King character model, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's just here's this random awesome sword on a freaking Space Marine. I'm not
on a Nurgle Lord of Poxes. Yeah.
okay, cool. I guess that's a thing. So that's about it for that. Yeah, the Emperor's Children was I think the biggest discussion there. We got the launch box discussion, talked about Lucius, and I mean, we already knew about Fulgrim.
I was going to say the Christmas Day drop of Fulgrim was okay, wow.
Yeah.
We wondered what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of knew what sort of vein they were going to go down, but damn.
Yeah. Well, it was so funny, I'm not going to say necessarily controversy, but the comments and memes that came out of, releasing that Fulgrim, because the one they did for Horus Heresy was very elegant.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But everyone was just more upset by how the 40K one looks, his face primarily.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I will definitely be putting the helmet on him.
The hat. Yeah, he's going to wear a hat.
Yeah.
So
unlike, Magnus. I thought Magnus looked better without a hat, right?
Big time.
But he is definitely going to be having a hat when I build him. And because I've been wanting to play EC forever. Since I first started, I was like, these guys are really cool and they're crazy. And, the old Lucius model was horrific looking. It was just
now
a travesty.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, his sculpt is great. I think
oof.
it really kind of encapsulated how I thought his character read. That's getting started box is kind of absurd for all the stuff you get in there. So you get two of the, oh my God, I can't remember. They're essentially their standard troops now.
Yeah.
And then you get 2 squads of the sonic weapons, right? And that Master Blaster looks sick.
Oh God.
At first I saw that and I was like, is that a character? Its own character? No, it's the squad.
It's the squad.
Yeah. He just has a proverbial boombox on his back.
Yes.
And then the new base hero model and stuff like that. And I was like, these sculpts look exactly how I want Emperor's Children to look.
Yeah, their lore is so crazy, convoluted, and cool, and it's still a nod to the over the top beginnings back in the day, and it's nice to see that they're not shying away from that, and they're not trying to back them off and make them more basic Space Marine and just chaosy.
Yeah.
No, they're gonna fully embrace that aesthetic, and they're gonna go full scale heavy metal death band. That's what this whole Legion is. We're just a really big metal band.
Yep.
From Europe.
Yes, specifically.
With long hair.
Sometimes. Sometimes I don't.
Sometimes I don't.
Yeah, I'm excited for the launch. I'll definitely be getting one of the boxes, assuming it doesn't sell out. Maybe a couple. I don't know. It's such a value. Getting all those base troops. Probably would never need base troops again. I think I'd probably have all the what are they called? Noise Marines that I would ever need.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because you get 12. You get 12.
Yeah. And back in the day when they did those single run Noise Marine, commemorative boxes, I still have a few of those.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, they're so cool, and now they fit and they have a place to go.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
In fact, if you want to, you can actually use those for your captain characters, right?
Sure. Oh yeah.
and go like really heavy metal band on it.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for it. I'm kind of nerding out over it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
it's cool.
the issue is that this is coming out, but in a non-GW line of products, there's something else coming out that I super want to get.
We've lost Josh.
Yeah.
Yes, we have truly, because on the 9th of January, Conquest, Parabellum Games, did a live stream that they do once a month to show the new faction that's coming out. And unlike other times where they've been like, okay, this is going to be the new faction, this is what it looks like, and we'll see in 4 months, 5 months, 6 months.
Yep.
After the show was over, the pre-orders went up.
Yep.
The new faction for Conquest is called the Felonies. I mean, the Yaroni.
Yeah. Bill's fun name for him. He thinks that, they're presently, if you look at their stat sheets, they are a felony crime. It is Oni. Like it is Oni, samurai, and archers.
Yes.
And so they did a great job of bringing in quite a few different of the traditional Japanese demon looks, right?
Yeah.
So you have like your traditional Oni. You have some that are like a little bit fatter with one eye. You've got Kappa.
Yep.
You've got the Tengu, which aren't, like how you imagine, like, with the long nose. They actually are birds.
Yeah.
And they're a brute only faction. That'll make a lot more sense later on.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah. And one of your characters is a kitsune, right?
Oh,
so you get the 9-tailed fox ladies, and they're your casters specifically.
Oh.
And they have a crazy monster that they haven't shown the sculpts for yet, but there is this hint in the back of the video where you see the concept design drawings, and it looks like this giant samurai demon.
Yeah.
It's
redonkulous. This is not an aesthetic that I've ever been really completely attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at those models and I was like, I know I can't buy these because Josh is going to go off for these. And I'm like, damn it, I won't get to, all right, whatever. But my God, they took that whole Eastern aesthetic and pulled it into the world of Ia and almost made it look effortless and almost like they truly belong there.
Yeah.
Which is really, when we get into our big Conquest coverage, we'll talk about how they managed to do that. And these sculpts are, run out to Parabellum, look at the pre-orders, and just look at how they have differentiated them enough to where they don't look like, oh, they just took a bunch of, Perry Twins Shoguns and moved them into our game. But I mean, it's a gorgeous faction.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to say right up there with, I thought the release of the Sorcerer Kings and the complete cohesiveness of that army and how that look was so well implemented. I thought they had kind of reached a peak.
Yeah.
Now I'm not so sure because these Uroni are just wow. And yeah,
and they're going to play completely different than any other faction. Like they literally break the rules.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But it's not only do they have like a distinct presence and identity in sculpt, but like they manifest that on the tabletop. They manifest that in the story, right? Yep. And watching the happy hour as they just went through the storyline, I was like, this is beautiful. How it's almost seamlessly just came together. Oh my God.
Yeah, you give one faction a really cool new toy, and because they got that toy, here comes the other faction, and you're like, oh, that is so perfectly cool. Yeah. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. It's gonna be wow.
Yeah, so that's the new stuff.
The new stuff that we're gonna hit. There's so much new stuff out there. It's
every day.
Bonkers ridiculous.
Every day. But because that's the end of what we're talking about, we can move into hobby now.
You see, for my part, I look upon a promise as binding.
Promise was never occurred to me. I command the king's ship, not a private yacht. We do not have time for your damned hobby, sir.
We've actually both been a little busy.
A little?
Yeah, Bill, you go first.
Okay, sure. So with my newfound love of Kill Team without circle squares and parallelograms, thank God Kill Team woke up and said, oh, this is dumb. Yeah.
How far away is that model? Two circles.
Two
What?
circles and a square, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. What? So, yes, thankfully, Kill Team has gone back to inches.
Yes.
So, all of your existing measurement tools for Kill Team, throw them away.
This is great for all of us who didn't pass, shapes and colors, right? Yeah. So thank goodness we moved on.
What the hell was that? Anyway, the new Kill Team, the new rule book is so much more concise. It's so much better written. It's like the difference between AOS 3 and 4. It's generational difference.
Oh, yeah.
The rule book for AOS 4 is so much better. And same thing with Kill Team. Mm-hmm. They have packed those rules down to about like 20 solid pages if you get rid of the pictures, and everything's explained. Yes. You don't have to start assuming because you can't find it.
Yeah.
It's so much better. But anyway, for Kill Team, I built up the Stingwing Kill Team and got them all primed, by the way, using the squad sprayer. And
shameless plug.
I tested a fig out with I was kind of trying to go for the, I want to say Armageddon Wasp. Tarantula Hornet is what I meant. So yeah, I'm painting them up in that black and blue scheme with shiny carapace kind of thing. So,
yeah, like from here they look great.
Yeah, I really love the wings, the orange wings, and I knew going into it when I first saw the Stingwings that I wanted to do the Tarantula Hornet as my color scheme.
Yeah.
And translating that into how it looks in the model, the test model I don't think is very good. I did too much blue with a paintbrush and not enough with the foam and the stippling. But that's why you do a test fig, so you can learn that stuff. And now when I get to do the rest of them, they'll look good. So I built and primed the Hyrotech Circle for Kill Team. I started working on the Nemesis Claw team and realized I don't really know how I want to build it just yet, and I don't want to commit right now. So I kind of put those off to the side. I built all the Kill Team terrain, and oh man, just the stuff that came in the box.
Yes.
Is just so good.
Yeah.
And, it's GW, why do you have to do things like that? You got this great looking terrain that you cast out of crap plastic, and you have 47 gates per piece, so that you spend an hour cleaning up the pieces of the terrain if you want it to look halfway decent. And after a while, I was just like, you know what? It's terrain. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, right.
If you see a mold line on my terrain, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't. But then in the world of Conquest, so there have been numerous new releases, and some of them for the Nords were the Gulter Beast Pack, which, we've been literally waiting for a couple of years. And the Gulter are just they're really big warthogs. And
they look so cool, though.
Awesome, because they're cavalry. They dovetail right into the new way that the Nords play, and they're just gorgeous models, go together super nice. I started building on the Steel Chosen, but then the 100 Kingdoms releases came out.
Oh yeah, you got that pile behind you.
Yeah, I'm not going to say mistakes were made, but yeah, mistakes were made. The Sakari came out, the two new characters that are going to, I think, take the 100K faction by storm, because they are so good in relation to when they first announced the changes that were coming. And I saw what they did to the 100 Kingdoms characters. I was like, wow, you just removed them from the game. You just literally took them out of it, because they completely nerfed the mage. They hurt the Theus priest a little bit. And, it's one of those things where you should know better than to make comments before you see the full version.
Yeah.
And the minute you start to see how the new characters work in and how the new characters buff up the old ones, you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yes.
I get it. Yes. I'm sorry for doubting you, Virgo. I'm sorry. So, yeah, it's 100 Kingdoms is just, I really think they're going to become my new jam. They're going to become my new main, because they're just, the variety of ways you can build now is so much fun.
Yeah.
And you're not limited to, I'm bringing this much Crimson Dawn and some other things to fill out my army.
Yes.
It's now hey, you know what? I can be a complete orders list. I can be a complete theist list. I can be, it's just So much fun.
Yeah, they're getting much more like separate identities within their sub-factions, right?
Yes.
If you could call them sub-factions.
Yeah.
Like if you want to now do a like mixed infantry cavalry list, the new hero,
Yeah.
right, makes that dream happen.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
If you want to do I'm taking the giant archangel because it's super cool, like you make that list happen now,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and it's the functionality and the freedom that you now have in terms of, you used to be able to build a mixed list in 100K, but you were forced into certain characters in order to do that.
Yeah.
Now you have so much more flexibility.
Yep.
And you can have a lot more fun. And to me, fun is the name of the game. I don't know how it's going to play competitively. I'm not going to even comment about that. I don't play that way. But I know just for pure fun and list building, the 100K now is it's an absolute pain in the butt because you have so many options when you're building your list and you're like, oh, but if I kill this and put this in there, it's going to be, oh, but I could take this. Oh, it's so much fun. You can just get nuts. So I've got one. Also, I painted up one of the Halo teams. I painted up blue team. Now I'm going to paint up a red team. That way we can continue on with our Halo fun. If you haven't played Halo Flashpoint or seen it, it's just great fun. It's, oh my gosh, fun game. And let's see, I bought myself a new Gundam to build. So I think he's the one right on top there, the 1017 Mobile Gin.
Holy crap.
So yeah, that's going to be my next Gundam to build. So yeah, I'm looking forward to, after I sweat out some of this, some of the 40K, some of the kill team stuff.
Yeah.
And the Conquest stuff. I will treat myself to building a Gundam. Yay.
A palate cleanser.
Yeah.
As it were.
A real model that goes together with real intelligence. Oh man, Gundams are so different from any other model you've built, and they're so much fun. You'll never reach for glue. You don't
need it.
That's not what they do. And they just, the way everything goes together. And I finished the other one. I got his backpack on there, and I'm just like, I cannot believe that's a $30 model.
Oh
I
yeah,
just
it's ridiculous.
cannot believe it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Anyway, I did order the John Blanche paint sets from Army Painter. Just after watching those videos, I was like, okay, and to have John Blanche himself come out and say, these war paint fanatics are the best paints I've ever used in the hobby, bar none. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty interesting statement. And, to hear other high-end painters saying the same thing, I was like, all right, I'm just going to take the plunge here. If John Blanche says it's good, who am I to argue?
Right.
So, but that hasn't come in yet, so that'll be a while. I think it's coming out in March or May. I think a month with an M in it somewhere. I don't know. But that's kind of it for my hobby. I don't think I did that much else. I mean, I built some terrain. I built some cardboard terrain for different games. But yeah, that's just all being stored.
Cool.
What'd you do?
So I, in the Trench Crusade realm, I built and primed my starting court list, the court of the seven-headed serpent, with the sin of pride, because I was actually able to snag some of those models that came in from Europe. Someone was printing them up.
Nice.
So I've got like I'm trying to think of the exact list I've got. It's 3 Yoke Fiends. I've got the Desecrated Saint, the Sorcerer, and the Praetor. So court is a very like elite list. And so you've got just monstrous characters that you can like slap things around with. And then I threw in like 3 little, schmucks to just run up and hold objectives while, my sorcerer is going around and like melting face, and the Desecrated Saint is tanking the entire enemy team. I mean, it's so cool. And the models are absolutely fantastic. So I got that built and primed. I bought that box of Krieg. It's the kill team box.
Yep.
And so I'm hybridizing them so I can use them either in Trench Crusade as Heretic Legion or as Krieg, right? Yeah. So I only needed to use a handful of models from the actual box to make my Trench Crusade list.
Nice.
And then the rest I'm trying to be like, so how should I build this kill team? Because I'm not 100% on that yet.
Yeah.
I certainly have one with a grenade launcher, one with a flamethrower,
sure,
and then a standard trooper. I just haven't decided how I'm going to make the rest for kill team, but those work for my starting list for Heretic Legion. I took one of my Rat Ogres and kitted him out so he's the Warwolf Assault Beast. And I was like, well, it says Warwolf Assault beast. It doesn't say it has to be a wolf, right?
Right.
It just has to be on the right base size, which is perfect base size. The one thing I have not finished with that list yet is making the artillery witch.
Ooh.
Because I've been like just very carefully looking at like the different, sprues and everything that I have and what I could use to get there, and it just hasn't been fully realized yet. I do know I am going to, I thought this would be a fun touch, the bone golems from Conquest for Old Dominion, right? I had a spare, what is considered their arm, right? And what it looks like is you have the one joint that connects to the main piece, right? Which is like a pillar of like bone and cemetery pieces, and it's just amazing. But then it's got this like little spiral up of bone, and so I could have that in the artillery witch's hand.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Yes. Oh, I like that.
So that, and I could paint it up, like it looks like it's from hell. You know? So I've got that part figured out. It's just like, what do I use as the base for the actual witch herself? So that one I've been working on. Now, when it comes to what we talked about last time, Infinity, with the big change to JSA, I've just been sort of like thrown for like, what do I build? Right.
I've got so much stuff built for both Nomads, which completely changed. The Bakunin stuff, the nuns with guns, completely changed to where it didn't really change that much. And, just sitting there going, wow, I built all this stuff, and now I actually want to rebuild half of them.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I mean, I have the models. It's just, what do I do? How do I commit to a list when I'm not familiar enough to know how I want my play style to be in the game? So, I mean, I got to start knuckling down and getting some practice games in just to see how they play.
Yeah.
And what it looks like on the tabletop.
Yeah. Same thing. I mean, because before N5, I bought the action pack or whatever for the
Steel Phalanx.
No, not just the Steel Phalanx, but for JSA.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I've got my mecha in there. I've got the girl on the motorcycle.
Yep.
Right. I thought it was just like, okay, JSA is going to be a main figure coming out. Let me get this, and then you got me the little 3-pack, right?
Yep.
I'm just like, where do I go? Like, I don't want to start gluing things together until I know that like this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just sort of paralyzed by choice,
Yeah, it's analysis paralysis at this point. I agree 100%.
So that's sort of like it's in the back of my mind. Then in the Magic realm, I been playing some 505 format. If I haven't explained that before, it's a local format where you make a commander deck, and it has a value cap of $50. This is based off of if you go on Moxfield and sort to TCG Player, because they'll have the lowest prices. No card can be over $5 except for your commander.
Yeah.
And so I made 2 decks for 505. Not physically. I have them on MTGO.
Yeah.
One of them is my freaking Sky Shark list, which is, I played a game with it last weekend and 2 weekends ago, and just demolished everyone because no one understood where it was coming from, right? Because like how it is you have I can't remember the Brawlin and Shabraz. So Brawlin is the Sky Shark Rider. Shabraz is the Sky Shark.
Okay.
Brawlin says that whenever you discard a card, each opponent loses 1 life, and you put a +1/+1 counter on him.
Oh, jeez.
Shabraz says whenever you draw a card, you gain 1 life, and put a +1/+1 counter on Shabraz, right?
Oh, for the love of God.
Shabraz gives Brawlin flying, and Brawlin gives Shabraz trample. Okay. It's red, white, blue, right? Jeskai colors. And so I built the deck on a 505 budget. So I essentially wheel my hand constantly. And then I've got like other value engines where it's like I can't remember the construct's name. It's like a 2-mana artifact. It says if you would discard a card, you may exile instead, and you can play it this turn. And then there's another one where what she says is actually if it go into your graveyard, you remove it. So you still count as discarding.
Right.
And then there's another gal that says whenever you discard a card, the first time that turn, or any number of cards, you draw that many cards.
Oh, Jesus.
And so, I was just like sitting here playing, like everyone else had like their very obvious like plans of action and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, Brawlin, yeah, Shabraz. And the next thing they know, I'm just like wheeling my hand. And I went through 56 cards in my deck.
Oh, jeez.
One of the test runs I did, I was able to, in a single turn, draw 54 cards.
Holy.
If I have just the right pieces out, right? So it was just hilarity ensued for me because I was like, no one really understands what I'm doing right now, do they? And by the time they realized what was going on, it was too late. So then afterwards, I explained to them, okay, here's how my deck works, just so we're fair for next time, right? But the thing is, they didn't see like half my cards, so they don't know all the tricks, right? They just know sort of like what the main strategy is, and so I've got like crazy board wipes and stuff in there that are just too much to handle. But it was super fun. And then for one of the play group I have that we play on MTGO, I made him a black-white aristocrats deck. So that was a labor of love. I was so shocked that I could get that level of aristocrats in the format where you have a cap of $50, right?
Wow.
So that was fun. So that was another
That's awesome.
side of things. And, as we talked about before, kind of gearing up for Euroni coming out. But I think we can talk about that a little bit more when we get to our main section. So,
Hey, nice segue. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back with all things Conquest.
Good speech. Nice and short.
Leaves more time for drinking. Break out the ale! These men are thirsty!
Here we are to talk about getting into Conquest. Oh my gosh. What a fun game.
yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, as we talked about before, rank and flank, right? This specific game, the way they've structured their models is that they have a circle base that goes in a square base.
Yes.
Nests in there nice and neat because the same models that you use to do the rank and flank, you use for the skirmish version First Blood. To be honest, I never wanted to play rank and flank until Bill brought this game to my attention. And as soon as I saw everything about it, I was smitten by it.
Yeah.
And I have a small force for this. First one I went for was Spires.
Yeah.
Which are we'll talk about what they do individually. Then I went Old Dominion. I've got Sorcerer Kings. I'm almost done building the starting Dwagum list. And then, of course, Euroni are going to come out, and I'll never play anything else ever again.
You can burn your old models.
Right. But it's similar to any other, tabletop game. It's based off points. Usually the lowest usually goes about 1,000. You don't really want to go too much further than that because you're not going to have many things on the table. It's
you
just
won't
not
get
as
the
fun.
synergies from the army.
True.
Below 1,000 points. It's just going to be, it's for learning.
Yeah.
And that's it. So.
And then most games are 2,000. That's in fact the recommended points is 2,000. So that's not hard, right? No. And then again, First Blood being the skirmish game, literally take your model off the stand that it's on because it has its own independent base, and you organize a small skirmish fight with similar rules.
Yes.
But certainly toned down to be more in line with a skirmish game.
Yeah, and the focus in the newest version of First Blood is more onto the characters and what they bring to the game. So your choice of character in First Blood is really key, and it's going to determine your play style. But the flexibility of, if you have an army for Conquest, you inherently have several First Blood armies.
Yep.
And so you can, if you don't have 2-3 hours to play a big full-scale game of Conquest, you can be like, hey, let's just play a quick, 4x4. Let's throw some terrain on the table and do some First Blood.
Yep.
Because the rules and the way things work, they don't change. They don't change drastically enough. Obviously, there's a scaling down.
Yes.
But it's seamless, and it's not like you're going to be saying, I know 40K and I know Kill Team. Those are completely different rule sets.
Yep.
And yet you're achieving the exact same thing. Here, they do it all in one rule set. One thing I will say about Conquest right off the top is this is an Alessio Cavatore rule set. Mm-hmm. And if you know miniatures games, you know the name Alessio Cavatore. If there's a good rule set out there for miniatures gaming, chances are he was involved with that. Mm-hmm. So, hello? Yeah. This is his, the incarnation of this system is his. Now, here's something that's really kind of strange about this game. It flips the die rolls upside down.
Right.
And this is a big caveat at the top. low rolls are good, high rolls are bad.
Yes.
Okay. So the first, I don't know why they did this. I think this was an anti-GW thing. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room, but it just seems to me like this was just done to say, yeah, screw GW. We'll change this.
Just thumbing their nose at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is something to remember. You want to roll low in this game. Another crazy thing about this game, and I'm going to draw comparisons here with another large company that is in miniatures wargaming, and that is that the company that puts this game out, Parabellum, they don't talk about asking for feedback. They actively seek out feedback.
Yep.
And very visibly use that feedback to not only change the rules, but to determine the course of the game and the rules and the lore in a way that no other game company does.
None other. No. Like they are so reactive and responsive to the community. By the way, the rule sets for everything, they're online and free.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why that is so great is because they're like living documents.
Yes.
As they update, change things, right? You just go right to the same page, download it. They'll put it in fuchsia. Here's what the change is, right? So that way you can just seamlessly, move with the rules as they change. And that reactivity, right? That fine tuning that is constantly happening, as opposed to like, oh, here's our big 6-month FAQ where we're changing things, that kind of thing. No, they are constantly moving and tweaking, because really in the game, as far as I've seen, we're not looking at having like this 10% spread in terms of like, if you're 45 to 55% win percentage, you're good. Yeah. They're like in the 49 to 51. Like they are trying to fine tune it that much.
Yes. They're the granularity of if you say a faction is bad in Conquest, it means they have like a 49% win rate. Whereas the really good faction has a 51%. Yeah. We're not talking about a huge spread here. And the competitive level of the different armies is so on par. And when it gets a little off kilter, they are very, very willing to make changes. And you can look on their online presence and see where people are suggesting different things. Yep. And people, and I'm not just, Joe Schlub from Oshkosh saying, here, do this, and then they implement that. But no, when they get a large tournament and they see interactions and they go to these tournaments, they actively look at how it's being played. And when they see something that doesn't work, i.e., when they went to, I don't know whether it was Adepticon or what was it last year, and they saw some things, and on Monday, there were rule changes that came out, and it addressed the things that they saw that were like, oh, we did not see that.
Yeah.
And now we know, and now we're going to fix that. It's easy. And like you said, with an online rule set and the army books and everything that you need, the army builder, everything is online and absolutely free. They're able to change these things on the fly.
Speaking of the army builder, I think it's one of, if not the best army builders I think I've ever had on my phone. I think like the process is very seamless.
Yes.
It's not confusing. Nope. Whatsoever. And what's great too is you have immediate access to your, not just the core rules, but your army rules. Yes. And it is updated alongside the FAQs and everything that drops. Like it is always 100% on point. It is not behind on any of the rules. Yeah. So as soon as there's a change, if you're going to go and see something in Fuchsia, it's in the app.
Yeah.
And building, and it works for First Blood and for core game.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So you just actually switch between them. You go in, make your list, save them. It's amazing. It's amazing. And that's just their base level support for the game.
And when you print out your list, this is the best part. The game is very heavily uses universal special rules. And when you build an army and you commit to it and you print it out at the back end of all your army unit cards, it prints out all of the special rules that are applicable to your army.
Yep.
So that instantly you have a reference right there. Now you can of course decline to print that out if you already know them by heart, which is weird, but it's super handy for somebody like me to have here's all my units, here's all the things that they have, and then right behind it, when it says, oh, they have Impetuous 1. Oh, shit, what did that do? Oh, boom, it's right here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So super handy, really gaming rules and army building done right. I mean, I love the Corvus Belli army builder for Infinity. But it can be very confusing at times if you're new to the game.
Yes.
Whereas if you're new to Conquest, honestly, you just look at it does not let you make mistakes.
Yeah.
In army building. If this character is only capable of having the following units, it's all they present to you to be able to take underneath that character in his warband or her warband. So it's you have to try to make a mistake.
Yes.
And yeah, pretty much can't if you follow the rules. So these are just a few of the reasons why this game is so great. A couple of others is they are just now starting to, and this is going to be a good and bad. They are starting to release themed terrain sets as STLs for you to print out if you have access to 3D printing, either at home or, a commercial thing. And when you buy the terrain set, they send you the license. It has the little thing that tells the company, yes, this person can print this out, blah, blah, blah. So you don't run into any issues with companies printing out proprietary stuff. And their STL packs are really kind of neat. They're a little bloated. Their like the Nords pack was over a gigabyte download for not that much terrain. They do give you a lot of different options, but those STL files can be optimized quite a bit in virtually any slicer. You can really optimize the crap out of them, which is, if you know what you're doing, it's actually a good thing. If you're very new to this, the files as given are almost perfect. They will get you a good result. Whereas if you know what you're doing, you can trim a lot of that fat. One thing that I will say, another reason this game is so great is what we just talked about, the internal balance of the game. And as they constantly work to not just balance the factions against each other, and a key part of this game is every faction plays completely differently.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to have 12 versions of the exact same Nords list, and it's so boring and it hurts, like a Space Marine list. No, if you're playing Nords, you are playing a completely different style than the guy who was playing Dweghome in front of you.
Yep.
And knowing how it becomes a little bit of a pain if you've never played and you don't know, say, how Spires works.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of surprises. But after that first game, you'll then know how Spires works and you'll be ready for them.
Yeah.
And so, it's that way in any game. There's always gotchas here and there.
Yeah.
But the balance between the factions is so well done. And then the internal balance inside the faction is another thing that is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
GW has had this problem with internal balance for so long, and it's part of the problem is they have so many legacy units. And this is why when I see GW coming across and with these broad strokes and taking units out of the game, it's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Because now they can tighten those factions up and make them better across the board. Parabellum doesn't have that problem. They don't have a serious glut of things. The game's been around for 5-6 years. They haven't bloated themselves into oblivion yet. But inside the faction, you are always going to have these critical decision points of what do I take? How do I want to play?
Yeah.
And so it makes it fun because you have to make choices in list building. And, list building shouldn't be just, here's the best things, take them. Now you have all these different options and you can look for synergies and look for ways to work it. And it's a lot of fun to do. And you can theorize for hours before you commit to a list. So that's fun.
And that's, why I'm so grateful for the Army Builder, because it lets you just move things around, easy to delete and add units and things like that. And so, maybe talking a little bit about the structure of the game, right? The game in and of itself is, well, you have a bit of a card game involved with it, but you have your command stack. which is...
Yeah, let's wait till we get to the
okay.
game concept.
Okay.
We're just talking about why it's so good.
Okay.
But I do think we can wrap that up and move into that. So, yeah, let's go on with your thought about the command stacks.
Yeah, so you get...
I think it's a key part of the game.
It is. This is a lot of where the strategy comes in, is that every unit in your army has a card. And, we won't get into like the, medium heavy stuff yet, but like certain units can come in at certain times.
Yes.
Right. You have opportunities to bring other units in, but that will depend on die rolls. But as you start to actually get your units on the board, you get your command stack, right? So you have you have a card that corresponds to each unit. So your characters have an independent card. The unit they're attached to, we'll talk about that in a second, gets its independent card, right? And you have your cards, you order them and then put them face down.
Yeah.
You reveal the top card and that unit activates. That is pivotal.
Yes.
In understanding how this game works and the level of strategy. There are some factions naturally who are going to mess with the command stack.
Oh, yes, they do.
We got city-states,
yes.
Right? Spires have ways to accelerate their command stack by
Yes.
going through like multiple units depending on who their general is. The Euroni coming out, throw the whole concept out of the window. They
command stack?
Yeah. So we'll since they're the exception, we'll get to them at the very end.
Yeah.
What that means, right? So when you're in list building, right, and you're looking at these synergies, right, because you have what are called draw events. So
Yeah.
when you draw that unit, if there's a draw event, and that triggers before anything else
Yes.
that unit does,
Oh, it's so
right?
annoying.
So you need to understand, like, okay, so, well, my hero has this draw event that affects the unit that they're attached to, right? And gives them this buff that I'm going to need in this turn, right? So you would order your command stack appropriately, right? There's so much depth to the strategy that brings.
The command phase of the game is one of the key fun parts of the game. Figuring out what your opponent is going to do and looking at the game state and the board state, knowing that you want to do the following things in the following order. But if you do that, you could potentially get a unit wiped out.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't go first.
Mm-hmm.
And if you play certain factions like 100 Kingdoms, where you are relying on the hard-hitting nature of your cavalry, you can't put them toward the back because once they get engaged, they are useless.
Yeah.
Their key functionality comes from charging and hitting.
Yep.
And same thing with monsters.
Mhm.
They're at their best when they charge into something. When they get mired into that long-term fight, oh, it's so annoying and you want to do, but you also need to get your spells off. You need to get your buffs off. So that constant decision making during the command phase of how you order your command stack is part of what makes this game so much fun.
Yeah.
In that you are ordering yourself and your turn the way you see fit. And when it doesn't work out, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Exactly.
Or when it goes perfectly, you're just like, I am a god at this game. So yeah, it's to me, it's one of the keys of the game is that command stack and manipulating it in whatever way you can. Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, and so sort of structuring your army comes from picking heroes that, depending on the hero that you pick for a particular warband, will provide you certain units that you are able to take. So, for example, right, I'm thinking to like Old Dominion, right? So I've got, the, oh my God, I forgot the priest's name, right? But there's a priest. And so my mainstays would be Legionnaires and the Karis, right?
Yeah.
Then you have your restricted units, which are usually more specialized, right? And how it works is that for every mainstay unit, you can take a restricted unit.
Oh, it's such a pain.
Yeah. And so that's part of the structure. Now, one of the things you have to know is that your characters are not independent, free moving things.
No.
They do need to be attached to one of the units, right? And that's usually one of the mainstays they'll be able to attach to.
Yeah.
For example, the God, is Archdeacon or whatever for the Old Dominion can attach to the Legionnaires. Okay, that's how they come onto the board, right?
Yep, he's baked into that unit now. And it used to be that you could have your character run around and go to different units, and he could leave the unit that he was in. That led to some really crazy game states.
Oh, yeah.
So they got rid of that completely.
Yep.
Once you pick a unit to be with, you're with them for life.
Yeah.
So reinforce that unit. You need a Blade of Wounds to keep your characters alive.
Right.
Just saying, advice.
And how it functions there is that, like, when you flip over your character card, right, you do all the actions your character can do, but he cannot move independent of the unit.
Nope.
So if you need to move your character prior to activating his card for his spell or whatever it is, you have to march that unit forward first.
Oh, but here's the kicker. Because now, in the latest set of rules, when you put a character in the command stack, if the very next card in the command stack is the unit he's attached to, once you're done with the character, you can immediately activate that unit.
Yep.
So now you're in that position of, if you need to move the character to get in range of something, you have to put the unit first.
Yep.
Whereas if you want to get that sweet, sweet double activation, you have to put him below you. Oh, it's such a pay. Oh, God, it's so wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. It's so getting that your command stack is everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's everything. But and that's part of the fun and the strategy and the list building.
Yes.
You know, is knowing how they're going to attach, how many additional stands you do. By the way, a stand is each square base, regardless of whether it's 4 little models or a brute / cavalry model.
Cavalry unit, yep.
Now, generally speaking, and again, there are those that break the rules, you'll have infantry, you'll have brutes, you'll have cavalry, you'll have monsters, and they don't like intermix.
Right.
Until they do.
Unless you're playing city states.
Right. Because the city states are able to actually take one of their brutes as a minotaur, right? They could take it with some of their infantry, which is super cool, by the way.
Oh, God, it's so awesome.
Like, even aesthetically, like when you see that unit on the field, it's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, you see 8 guys surrounding one minotaur, and they're just going up as a unit, and you're just like, oh, that is so Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah, it's great. It's great. Now, the Euroni again break the rules again, because they actually, their mainstay stuff is all mixed units.
Yeah.
Like, they literally can create whatever unit they want to.
Yes.
That can affect whether they get certain abilities or not, but they're able to do that. Almost everything other than city states and Euroni operate in this way.
Yep.
And kind of a note to like the purchase of things, because I think it fits in here in the game concepts, is that like when you buy a box of infantry or brutes or whatever it is, you get a lot of plastic for your buck.
Yes,
right?
you do.
And the prices are just absurdly good.
Yes.
Even if you're buying full retail.
Yeah.
Absurdly good. So you're getting a lot of plastic. They're usually a joy to put together,
Yeah.
Some of the older gen stuff, not so much, but they're starting to revamp that. So as you're building these units, you kind of like start to conceptualize, okay, I understand how this unit works, like how it's put together. There are rules where you put your characters in the mix of everything, that kind of stuff. You'll have your standard things like flag bearers or, something that's, specialized.
Yeah. Standard bearers are key.
Oh, yeah. Because,
boy, you wouldn't think about it, but that extra inch of movement and that ability to re-roll the charge is huge.
Yep.
And by the way, just so you know, in 100 Kingdoms, all their standard bearers just got free. They just went to free. It's so gorgeous. Oh, anyway.
Yeah, Bill, you're becoming a 100 Kingdom stand for sure.
Yeah.
The rules and stuff, like certain units have like very valuable tools to come in early. Some you want definitely to come in mid game, even if they could come in a little bit earlier, because like your positioning, like this game, positioning is 100% everything.
Oh my gosh, yes.
If you get flanked, one of your units gets flanked, it is not fun. Oftentimes that unit goes away.
Yes.
So understanding your angles, where you're coming from, how to deploy, right? How to move your deployment lines up, as you start the game, because you set your deployment line by your unit that's the furthest, right? Unless, you have
your non-irregular unit that's furthest up the board sets where you come in at.
Yeah.
So,
and knowing then, okay, I set the line with this unit, but then I've got this very like strong tactical unit that I know can come in here and deal with, like what Bill's pushing to kill this unit, right? So like having that layered strategy, again, ordering your command stack, right, is so important.
It's crazy, especially when you realize that the command phase obviously comes before anything else and before initiative. So even if you have units that are coming in from off board, you are putting their cards into play right away. And it becomes so critical because the actual reinforcement line is set at the end of the turn. So even if you've made advances this turn, that won't reflect in how you bring in your newest units. But if your new units have something like double time, where they're going to move, even the slowest unit that moves 5 inches is potentially going to move 16 inches that turn that they come in. Oh my God, that gets huge. And so ordering that command stack, again, you keep coming back to the command stack. It's a key part of the game, and it's where you determine how bad you're going to lose. If you're me.
It's all in your hands.
Yes.
It's all in your hands. Yeah. So,
and another key concept of this game is, and I know we begrudged this in the GW world about having universal special rules everywhere, whereas in Conquest there are universal special rules. The beauty of it, how it's implemented in this game, is they have removed the 6 unit special rules that are exactly the same.
Yeah.
But apply to different factions in different ways. No, in this game, if you have flank, flat out, you have flank.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have flank, you're amazing.
Oh, God, right.
But, if you have Bastion X, boom, you just have it. And everybody knows that Bastion gives you +1 to your defense. It's simple. It's really done well. And also, it allows them to tweak the entire game with some very simple wording changes to the special rules. And, recently Aura of Death just got a huge change, and it changed across the board for every faction. So nobody, even though it probably hit Dweg home the hardest because they relied on it the most, but it also hit Old Dominion. It hit Sorcerer Kings, and it kept everything fair and balanced.
Yes.
Fair and balanced. Okay. Anyway, it kept everything, level so that one faction didn't end up with, I have the old rules, so I'm actually just so much better than you. Because my version of Aura of Death was actually called Fiery Death. And your version was called Cold Death. No, everybody has Aura of Death, and everybody plays by the same rules. So the beauty of it is you only need to print out 1 page. And once you have all the special rules, you can look them up instantly, and nobody gets that gotcha moment where, I didn't know that was coming. Well, no, you did. It's right here.
Yeah.
So that's some of the beautiful concepts of the game. One other key concept to this game, and this applies to virtually any game that you play, but play the fucking scenario, okay?
Right.
We're not here to go. Now, I mean, obviously there are a couple of factions where killing the enemy will basically bring you the scenario as part of it. The Nords, for instance, they try to win the game by getting across the board as fast as possible, grabbing an early points lead, and then watching that points lead erode. But you have to play the scenario.
Yes.
The scenarios are key, and I don't know of any scenarios that exist now where killing the enemy is going to win you the game if you have ignored the actual objectives on the table.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think this game does a really good job of punishing you for not playing the scenario, right? In a sense. Because if you're like, I'm just going to go smashing into my opponent, they may lose their models, but win the game.
Yeah.
Because they played the scenario, because they went to the objectives, they knew what they were doing. And despite you just beating their face in 5 turns, it's a 10-turn game, by the way. 5 turns in, you're like, all right, I have eradicated their army. And then you're like, cool. So let me go and add up these points real quick. And you cannot possibly catch up.
I was just going to cover that. We just said it was a 10-turn game, and that might seem like, it's going to take forever. Keeping in mind that the first 2 turns are usually just moving onto the board and capping objectives for both sides. So they go relatively quick. the last couple of turns, if you go to turn 9 and 10, usually they're pretty quick because by that time you're down to next to nothing.
Yeah.
And it's turns 3 and 4, 5 and 6 where all the action happens that take quite a bit of time. But the other nice thing, and you alluded to it, is a lot of times you will arrive at turn 7, turn 8, and you will look at the math and go, you can't come up to the numbers.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's not enough units left to kill or objectives to cap. So it doesn't always go to turn 10, although a lot of times it does. And a lot of times it's scoring out through turn 10 that wins the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fun when you're into, tabletop gaming to see the dynamic of Conquest.
Yeah.
Because sort of on paper, you wouldn't think it, but a lot of the time games get really crazy. Interactions, and you're just sort of like, sometimes you have that feeling of desperation if you pull off, that little victory over here, right? And it just feels so big, but then you realize, oh crap, here comes the, war elephant on this side. And oh crap. It's just so fun. It's so fun and dynamic.
Yeah. If you just read the rules, you are not going to capture the actual flavor of playing the game. And that's where the game just kicks butt, is in implementing the rule book. And, oh, God, so good.
Yes. Go
ahead.
I was going to say, sorry, you could see how hyped we both get because this game is so freaking cool.
It is.
So we talked about the publisher's Parabellum.
Yes.
Right? Their website, well, at least when you're going to order things, is not the most intuitive, but once you get the hang of it, it's not bad. They are based out of Greece, right? So don't be shocked when you see the shipping coming from Greece. I remember the first time I ordered from them and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I will say first, talk to your friendly local game store.
Yes.
Parabellum has a phenomenally good relationship with retailers.
Yes, they do.
And they will, it would be so much better to have them establish an account with Parabellum and get the stuff for you as opposed to you just direct ordering from them. Now I've done both. I've made Vic relatively wealthy or at least paid the bills from buying Conquest stuff, but also there are some things that I ordered direct from them, like the t-shirts and the swag and all that stuff. I will order that directly from Parabellum.
Yeah.
Just because it's simpler and easier. And, I'm not usually worried about getting that stuff on time, but definitely talk to your FLGS and say, hey man, contact Parabellum and they have a great deal with retailers.
Yep.
They treat retailers like you're important to us because you sell our stuff and make us money.
Yeah.
So they know how to treat people and they do it well.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're so lucky, that we've got Slice and Dice here, that carries this product. And gosh, I remember when you first got me into it. So going in there, it's sort of like, okay, how do I start this game? Right? Like, what do I buy? I can look at the rules online. I understand okay, here are maybe some lists that I want to go for. But what if you're coming in out of the cold, Bill? What do you think? Do you think that they have a good onboarding process?
Yeah, kind of. I would say they could do a little bit better with their Vanguard programs and, getting the word out. I think one of their biggest issues has been just getting that game out there into the public eye. And I think they could use a little bit more outreach and actually have a Vanguard program that really rewards the Vanguards for bringing people in. But I would just always suggest get onto the Discords, get onto the Reddit, find who your local Vanguard is and talk to them, ask them, and they will help out quite a bit. Our local Vanguard is pretty cool. He puts together events whenever he can. He'll either do them over at Slice and Dice or the other, I can't remember the other name of the other game store, but he'll get stuff together going and it's really nice. And again, one of the nice parts about Conquest is the community is really non-toxic.
Oh yeah.
And you can throw a list out there that you've kind of half baked and you can put out and, and ask for ideas and You will very rarely get that's a stupid list, shut up, noob. You don't see that very much. Usually people will be like, hey, what's your goal? What are you really trying to do with this army? And here's some changes, and they'll be super helpful. And, honestly, it's a really good community. And I like interacting with that community. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you see anything in terms of, the jerks.
Yeah.
You don't see that much.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. The community's always been great. And one of the things that they do that Parabellum does is they have the happy hour. Right?
Oh yeah.
And this is actually something that's super cool. So they'll get on, it's a Google Meet, right?
Yep.
And they will, for actually usually about 2 hours, right? They'll talk about upcoming products and things like that. And people can actively ask them questions in real time.
Yes.
Like, not just, hey, I typed a little question in the chat. They're like, who has a question? I do. Hey, Josh, what's your question?
Yeah.
I unmute and I get to interact with them,
Yes.
And so that's how dedicated they are to the community and getting involved. And the fact that a lot of the stuff that they give, the local gaming stores, right? To try and get them interested, try and get other, like, if they're trying to sell the product, get, customers interested. They are super into that, and so they've got such a strong, like, community presence when they are in the community.
Yep.
Right. If they could reach out at a greater level, and bring more people in.
Yeah.
I think the game would be far and away probably one of the top. Tabletop games, period.
I think it would. But if you are looking to get into it, there are avenues. And unlike some other large companies that we know of, they make it super easy to get into because they have both a 1-player starter box for every faction, and then they have these amazing 2-player starter boxes. Now, obviously, they can't hit every combination that you want to hit.
Yeah.
But between the two of those, if you are getting into, say, Nords, if you get the 1-player starter box and split the 2-player starter box with someone else, you've basically finished your army.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, you're going to want to pick up some one-off things here. You're going to want to get Valkyries and, perhaps some other things that might not come in the box.
Yeah.
But they are constantly changing the contents of the 1-player starter boxes. And the 2-player starter boxes.
Yep.
To make them as relevant as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get this, hey, we have a crap ton of this unit sitting in the warehouse, so that's what's going in the starter boxes.
Right.
You don't see that here. What you actually get are units you're going to need and use in the game, and you're not going to have buyer's remorse, or you're not going to be sitting there going, I bought this box and I actually got that unit and I'm not going to build it. I don't need it.
Yeah, sometimes you could be lucky enough, right, that they have one of the older and one of the newer.
Oh, yeah.
So you could buy one of each. Usually they like 200 American, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the amount of plastic that you get, if you bought those models separately, the savings you have on average is absurd. But that's not the only absurd value you can get from them, because time to time they'll have these faction sales on their website where you can literally buy a 2,000 point army in one go.
In one box.
And the savings are like 40+%
Yes.
Off of what you would pay otherwise.
Crazy.
Only company I have ever seen do that, where they're like, here's everything you need to have a full functional 2,000 point army. Have fun.
And I'll tell you right now, most armies, almost all of them, you will get into them at full speed with a 2,000 point army for under $500.
Yep.
And now that might sound like a lot, but when you look at a 2,000 point Space Wolves army or a 2,000 point Eldari army, you're going to pay a little bit more now.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And one fun thing too is some of the like starting boxes, right, will come with the monsters, right? So the Dweg home one,
ridiculous what you get.
The Dweg home, Dweg is what we call them for short. The Dwegum, which are the dwarves, right? For 1-player starter box comes with their monster. Well, one of their 3 monsters, right? Hell yeah.
So you're instantly playing the fun stuff.
Yes.
You're not like, well, I got this basic box of just infantry that I have to slog through building and painting. No, you're getting the good stuff. The new Euroni 2-player starter box that has Wadroon and Euroni
Oh,
in it.
yeah.
Oh my God, it's off the hook.
Yeah.
Because not only are you getting the new Wadroon creature, but you're getting all the best Euroni stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like off the hook. And these things, you're not going to sit there and obviously it's an investment. It's, we're looking at over $200, but it's so worth it. And you're splitting these 2-player starter boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're crazy and you just want to start 2 factions at once. Hello, Bill. But they're super fun to split. And one thing, another thing that's just gorgeous about the 2-player starter boxes is they are designed for 2 players to get into the game. Yes, granted, you only have 1 copy of the rules, which is silly because you don't need that little copy of the rule. I wish they'd get rid of that.
Yeah.
From the box because it's usually out of date by the time it ships.
100%.
But, you're getting all of these sprues. They're super easy to separate. The bases are super easy to separate since everything uses the same bases. You just count up the numbers and boom, split them up.
Yep.
So it's super easy to split that box. And it's actually fun. It makes sense. It's a really good deal. And, even the latest Sakari box
Sakari.
Yeah. The Sakari boxes for 100 Kingdom, the newest units for 100 Kingdoms, which again, I love the lore for these guys. It's so good because it's a throwback to the Adeptus Sororitas. It's this group, this faction underneath 100 Kingdoms. They were honor bound to never have men at arms. So these guys are prohibited from wearing armor. So that's it. They got robes. That's it. They got big swords and robes. So they hit really hard and they die like a tissue. It's just, they're so cool though. But I mean, this box of 12 models, which incidentally are gorgeous. And also, if you look at these, there's so many different game systems you can use these models in that it's absolute. These are great Oathmark units. These would be great in 5 leagues. You name it. They'll be great anywhere.
Yep.
And the whole box, 12 of them, $39.99.
Ridiculous.
Now, comparing to another large gaming company, you might get 10 models for $60.
Like 65 now, right?
Yeah, they've gone up a little bit. So
yeah,
cheaper overall.
But it's not for lack of quality either. That's one thing you have to understand. Some of the older sculpts, boy, those were a little rough, but those were their growing their phases. Like sometimes you'd have mixed plastic, right?
Oh,
like this sprue is dark gray, this sprue is light gray, and it's softer.
Yeah.
Those were wild times. But as Parabellum has been growing, Conquest, their product is so good. The level of detail they're getting on their models, the plastic is absolutely fantastic. It's never given me fits from when they started the new process. You know, they're a joy to put together. That's the thing. And you get so much of it.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. And then knowing that with First Blood, right, your models have additional relevance in a separate game because you just pull it off the stand.
Yeah,
and now it's going to be this thing.
1 box, 2 games.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good. It's so cool.
It is. Let's move on to like books and apps and lore and all that stuff. One of the things that's so weird about this game is there are no books to buy. There was a Conquest Compendium or a Conquest Companion book that came out a few years ago. I happened to get one in an LVO swag bag, and I thought to myself, well, I need to throw this away because I'll never play that game. I'm so glad I kept it because it's got a really good overview of the lore. The rules are completely outdated by now, but the lore section is very, very good. But you won't find a lot of printed stuff because everything is on the website. You go to parabellum.com and here's where it gets crazy because the lore of this game is completely contained on the website.
Yep.
And when they talk about a living world, let me tell you something. It's 100% a living world.
Oh, yeah.
When you go to their website and you click on the living world link, first of all, make sure you make an account before you do this, because
Mm-hmm.
you will get credit for doing things in the living world.
Yep.
So don't forget to make an account.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go into the living world. And now you are presented with, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, because you can go into the living world section and you can just read all the lore for all the factions.
Yep.
And you can spend hours, days consuming lore
Oh, yeah.
from there. Or you can go to the living world section and you will be presented with a map.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be pins on that map. As you click through each pin, these are basically hotspots
Yeah.
that are happening in the world. And you can read the ongoing story. And let's say you're coming into it in about the middle. So there's 5 chapters.
Yeah.
And you'll read chapter 1 and you'll get to the bottom. And you'll see that there was a question. And it was like, does character X do the following? And then it'll have like 2 or 3 options, you know, kill the envoy, hear out the envoy, or completely agree with the envoy. And you will see where everyone else voted and what they voted for. And it has the percentages right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next chapter will reflect what that decision was.
Yep.
And then as you get to the bottom, you will be presented with, here's the lore section, the paragraphs that are the story so far. And then the question will come up and you have to answer. Well, you don't have to, but
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to click and give the answer you think would be the coolest. And in a day or two, when they update that, if you were in the majority of the people that clicked on those things, and you will see your answer carried out in the lore.
Yeah.
And this is, it sounds silly. It doesn't sound silly. It sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
It's really awesome. But as you go through and as they reach different decision points in these different campaigns that are going on, this materially affects how the world is going.
Yep.
And the choices all reflect in what the next factions released for the game are going to be.
Yep.
And so quite literally, recently, the 100 Kingdoms was the only faction that did not have a monster.
Yeah.
And they were not going to have a monster. They were not a heavy monster-based faction. And of course, the hue and cry from the community is, we want a monster. Everybody else gets to play with monsters. We want a monster.
Yeah.
And they said, shut up, you have Ash and Dawn. But anyway, but as the story carried forward and as these changes were implemented and people voted, all of a sudden 100 Kingdoms got themselves a monster. And because they got a monster, an entire new faction was introduced into the game.
Yep.
And because the Archangel was birthed into the world, it opened up the doors to this new Euroni faction. And the way the two interplay is just off the hook.
Yep.
And this is just an example of how the company takes your feedback. And like you were alluding to, when you go to the meet and greets, the happy hours, and you're able to directly ask the guy, the guy who's writing the rule, hey man, what'd you mean when you said this? Do you really intend it to do that? And did you know that it affects this and this and this? And they'll flat out answer your question. They don't moderate. It's not like you're on mute while you ask your question.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, we don't want to answer that. That's kind of tricky.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's live. And the whole world gets to say, hey, what is this and why? And they'll answer. They're open and they're upfront about it. It's so awesome about the game.
Yeah, not just opening this up, like creating a new faction, right? But choices lead to new models, right? Like the fact that the Archangel is birthed from the progression of the storyline, right? And that model is cool as crap. It's sort of like, doesn't look like a biblically accurate angel, but it's sort of like a statue with a sword.
Yeah.
That like came through because of like what their faith, right? It was that
the theist faith.
The theist faith, like they were able to birth the Archangel, but it weakened the veil between the physical realm and the realm where the Euroni came from. So then all those models come out now.
Yes.
Right. So we get to interact and not just develop story, but also guide what releases we get too, in a sense,
Well, and you look at the lore campaign packs that are coming out now, which are absolutely phenomenally wonderful things. The lore packs that come out are usually 2 characters because the lore campaign is usually one faction. It's always one faction versus another. And they give you an alternate model for one of the characters in each faction. And then there's a whole narrative campaign in there, and you play through the scenarios, and they're brilliant. They are just so well done and so well written. And it all comes from all the Living World stuff. And it's just, you can see your interactivity with their system paying out an actual product that comes into your hand. And you're just like, oh my God, that is so cool. But we've waxed a lot about that. Shall we cover some of the factions? We're gonna briefly cover each one of the factions and why you might want to play that faction in this game.
Yeah, so this is all right, you guys hooked me. I think this system sounds great. I really want to get involved. But which starter box do I get? Right? And so we'll just sort of, well, not necessarily alternate. Well, let's talk about the ones that we play. Yeah, so first off, we've got Old Dominion. It's the Roman Catholic undead. So yeah, they have this very like Roman Byzantine era style look to them. They are resurrected when their god died. And their whole thing is that the resolve mechanic, right? Which is sort of like your morale. Oh, I've taken damage. I need to roll resolve. If I fail, I lose additional units. They don't do that. They
don't care.
They don't have resolve. They don't care. They're undead. And they just march ever forward. And so if you like that, really, like, it's the only undead faction presently in the game.
For now.
So if that's kind of your shtick, if you like that aesthetic, definitely go for it.
And the Roman thing, if you like that Roman sort of Romanesque idea, oh yeah, perfect.
And their monsters are cool. They've got cool cavalry and stuff, but they're like cataphractoi, ketes, like they have all those, sort of Latin sounding names, Italian sounding names. Then you got the Spires, who are like, I don't know, the progenitor of like everything in the game. They are literal aliens, come through some sort of dimensional portal type thing to this planet, and they are like biomancers.
Yes.
And they literally have spires that go deep underground and up into the sky. And their whole thing is that they have this like upper strata in terms of their hierarchy, who essentially make drones and clones, and they put all these things together and send them out to go do their bidding. Meanwhile, the upper echelon of the society can literally psychically embed themselves in avatars and send those out into the world to fight. You also have underspires too, but they are certainly, it's science that looks like magic. And they've got some really crazy, truly alien looking aesthetics.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
So those are pretty fun.
Yeah. Next up, you have the Nords, who are not your typical Vikings, while they're your typical Vikings. They play nowadays with the new rule changes. They play a lot like you would think. They are a Viking raiding party. And as you start the scenario, you have to think that through. I have to go grab and cap as many objectives as I can, sit on them as long as I can, and conduct a reasonably skillful retreat to maximize my points and not lose every unit on the board. They're really fun to play that way. And as a faction, when I say they're the Vikings, they have Scalds. They have all of the things that you think, the shaman, all of the units that you think, but they also have trolls and ogres, and these things are not outliers in their society. These things are baked into their society. So a unit of trolls is exactly as well received and accepted as a unit of Steel Chosen, the regular human types. So you can mix and match and play with werewolves and trolls and ogres and not have a single human in your list and have a great time. So they're a really, really fun faction to delve into. Lore-wise, I'm not even going to begin to cover it, but oh my God, it's so good. It's such a great explanation for Norse mythology that just, it's awesome.
Yeah, don't forget, with the Nords, you get the Jotuners, you get the giants.
Oh, you get the giants too.
And they look beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful models.
Yeah. So it's all the things that you think about from that sort of mythology. Then you move on to the ones that I talk about a lot, the 100 Kingdoms. 100 Kingdoms are basically the men, the Bretonnians, if you will. They are the army of men, the knights, the cavalry, armored infantry, the religious zealots, or just the smash mouth priesty types. That's how they play. That's what they do. They're hard-hitting cavalry, hard-hitting infantry. They'll go to a point, sit on the point, and dare you to throw them off of it.
Yeah.
And while you're trying to throw them off of it, the cavalry will come on and just mess you up. So, and they also have the religious and magic aspects in that they have chapter mages and theist priests. And so you can go down whatever road you want to go down. They're a blast to play. Then we have Wadroon.
Oh,
Okay. I'm not going to say much about them. It's orcs on dinosaurs. Just shut up.
yeah.
It's orcs on dinosaurs.
Some of the most beautiful models I think that Parabellum has put out. You have a T-Rex. You have orcs riding Triceratops and raptors, and very recently a giant pteranodon. It is so
God.
cool.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't know what they do, like, you might just get into that army on aesthetics alone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easy. That's what Pam did, and I was so excited the other day. We went to the store, and I'm not prompting her to do this, but she looked at the new Wadroon Pteranodon beast, and she was like, oh, there's no way that's 120. That's too much. It's $129. And before I know it, I'm walking around with my stack of things I'm buying, and she's got the box in her hands, and she's like, here, add this to the stack. And I'm like, yes, I love it, because she's the one that bought into the Wadroon. So
they're so cool. And they have a fun mechanic where they have this whole chanting thing, which again is knowing when to use what chant when, right? Get to build up to it.
And
right?
now that they've cleaned it up so much, it's so much easier to play.
Yeah, so much so that they've been putting up serious numbers of tournaments.
Yes.
Like, people really took to them once that change hit.
I have to believe that there's a change coming to how they're going to operate, just because they are, with that freedom to chant, it almost makes them too good. And I can see them maybe changing the queen around a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, that's for them to decide. I don't pretend to know how to pull the correct levers. They know how. I just shut up and go, oh, that's a good change.
Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, then we got Dwagum, dwarves, but not as dwarvy as other dwarves.
No.
So this faction, I mean, they are the tanks of the game, like they have been to date. So they used to serve dragons, but then they somehow freed war itself from, the core of the world and defeated dragons.
And now the dragons work for them.
Yeah. The dragons are more like drakes now, because all the other dragons be gone. They are quasi, not futuristic in a sense, but like one of their main units has freaking grenade launchers on their shoulders. And if you like a slow but hard hitting army, Dwag is the one to go. The aesthetics with their Helldrakes, and their I forget the Iron Throne guy. They have something that looks like a giant robot now.
Oh yeah, the big giant with the guy sitting up on the top. I forgot what the name of it is, but it's literally dwarves mixed with steampunk.
Yep.
But not in the World of Warcraft way, in a much more sensible, how do we turn this in? How do we turn steam power into warfare?
Yeah.
And that's what they do, and they're awesome at it.
Oh my god! And their casters are some of the best in the game.
Oh,
even now,
their casters are stupid. They're so broken. They need to be. They're so OP,
and they've been nerfed multiple times.
I only say that because I'm on the butt end of that so much. And what kills me is all the free casting that they get. And then they get their little cheat counters, and we call them cheat counters because what it does is, for every one you spend, that just makes your spell go off better.
Automatic successes. You get automatic successes.
And you get these things like candy.
Yeah.
What you put your socks on. Oh, you get a counter.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Great.
Did you walk around that corner of the table?
Yeah.
Another counter.
It.
Yeah.
You got
good.
one. Yeah.
Good. And the thing is, you can hand them out to your units to succeed on checks. Oh my goodness. So Crazy army.
You're starting to fail resolve tests, no problem. You can just basically say, no, they all succeeded. Here's my counters. Goodbye.
Right. You just got a stack of poker chips on the table, I swear.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Then up next, you got Sorcerer Kings. So this is very Middle Eastern, looking. I mean, you have the, oh my God, was it the Maharaja? It's like your main like leader type of guy, the Raj. You got sorceresses. You literally have like the giant elephant with the, they call it the mammoth, with the gorgeous like carrying on top, right? God, archers shooting down from it. They are everything you think of. Plus, you do get the Jinn.
Yes.
You get the Ifrits, right? So they're a very elemental-based army with very interesting procedures because they have these rituals, right, that you're trying to build up to. And when you get your ritual off, it goes in your command stack. And so you actually get this ability to use this ritual as another card, which in terms of activation war type stuff, it messes with that. So very spell heavy, not a lot of like upfront oomph, like you're not going to have a lot of just straight up like melee powerhouses, but they do a lot of control gaming.
Yes.
So if you're like a blue player in Magic, Sorcerer Kings is going to be up your alley because you are trying to manipulate the battlefield too, like whether you're slowing your opponent down or stopping an activation or that kind of thing, so you can position out right.
It's a serious. As the game goes, you build up in strength and you start off almost unable to play on the same table with your opponent. But then as the game goes, you become stronger and stronger and stronger as they're becoming weaker because of losses.
Yeah.
And it's this interesting how the crescendo rises. And if you manage to peak everything in that turn 5, turn 6 range, and you just bring off all your stuff, it's game over.
Yeah.
It's just game over. But if the other person plays cagey enough or has hit you and bloodied you up enough, it can be a slog.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. It's a lot of fun to play Sorcerer Kings. Both playing them and playing against them is really cool.
It's always a dynamic game. Oh, and one of your favorites coming up next, Bill.
Okay, so here comes City States. Oh my Lord. The lore for these guys is, I think, bar none, one of the best interpretations of Grecian sort of meta history that you could possibly imagine, in that, they had their big god. Their big god started to lose the favor of the people and was basically cast down. And then all that power was transferred all around the place. And it's been really weird. Their overall motif is Greek soldiery, Greek motifs mixed heavily with steampunk. Heavily. And so they have mechanical units. Mechanical units don't do resolve. They don't really, if I'm a clockwork soldier, I don't really care about the morale. I don't care if the buddy next to me died.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it was. So they're very, very cool in that respect. Again, this is one of those, this faction breaks several rules.
Yep.
In that with your baseline infantry units, your mainstay infantry units, you can replace one of the stands with an auxiliary, and that auxiliary is one of your Minotaurs.
Yep.
So you can either have a unit of Minotaurs, which is in and of itself pretty, bonkers fun, or you can put those in with your infantry and give your infantry something to bulwark against.
Yeah.
So it's very, very cool. The flexibility. The other key mechanic that they have is their ability to manipulate the command stack.
Yep.
In that I can pull a card and go, yeah, that was a bad choice when I was building my deck. So I'm just going to put that over here and I'm just going to draw that later.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is City States lets you make mistakes when you build your command stack. And then when you go to fix that mistake, not only do you get to fix your mistake, but you get a bonus for fixing your mistake. So it's a really forgiving faction. And they now have chariots. It's just so cool that they have chariots. It's so nice. And the other nice part that they got was they have these monsters, the Promethean and the Hephaestion, which are just watch one of the Jason and the Argonauts movies and you'll know what these guys are.
Oh, yeah.
They're just these huge statues that come to life. Hephaestion basically being what you think and Promethean being basically what you think. One of them is throwing around magic. The other one's throwing around fire. Now they have a overarching monster, which is a dual kit with the Nords monster. And it's just amazing. So you can build it for the Nords and it looks just perfectly right with city states. So you can have one model working in two different factions.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So yeah, it's just off the hook. And that model allows you to, I'm not even going to go into what it does, but it's awesome. City States is a lot of fun, and they're on the way back. For a while, they were the worst performing faction. Not anymore.
Yeah, and by worst performing, again, we talked about earlier, 49% win percentages.
Yeah, they didn't win every other game. They won every third game. So
yeah, and I think presently, right, are they the only faction that can do an all monsters list?
Yes.
Yeah. Which is another appeal for it if that's what you wanted to do. If you're like, I just want 5 fatties running around smashing face.
Nords can do it too. Nords can do it.
Because the dual kit lets them do that, right?
Yep.
So it depends on what you want. Do you want to do more of the Greek steampunk aesthetic, or if you want to do more of the ice giant type thing? You know,
it's nuts.
Yeah, they're super cool. And the last faction, we've talked a little bit about them back and forth, the Yoroni. Again, just that they're like Oni warriors, right? Like, so they are, when you think of like what the samurai were trying to do, you know, with like Zen principles and things like that, that's what they are.
Yes.
So far, like in terms of their rules, of course, they are not congealed at this point, but they are a brutes only. So you're not getting boxes of 12 guys. You're getting only boxes of 3 guys, and they are meant to just go smash face. When we said that they break all the rules, it's because they have a mechanic that we all have to take a while to learn now, because anytime they flip over a command card, they can activate any unit that has not been activated.
Right.
What happens though is they have different elements, right?
Yes.
5 different elements to them that if you activate a corresponding unit, you know, that unit has like Ka or whatever, right? Or Chi. If you get a bonus to activating the corresponding unit with that card, but they have flexibility. Plus, they're the only one that only army that allows you to have a unit of 2 stands base as opposed to 3.
Yes.
So they are going to be able, and they fully mix and match.
Yeah.
So there are benefits to having just, you know, the one type in a unit, but if you do the mixed arms thing, it looks like there's going to be a lot of strategy involved there.
It's going to be a heavily synergy based army, and just from the overall look of how it goes together, I think they've really captured that Far East aesthetic and feel, and they're going to play in that way to where it's going to be a challenge to play them properly.
That's what they talked about on the happy hour. It's like you can get into it, and it's very forgiving for a new player because I can activate anything with anything. So like, where you start to get better is when you start matching the cards with the right units, and then you start making the right combinations of modified regiments, right?
And the back-to-back activation that they're going, the order that they're going to be able to use is going to be key to them hitting as hard as possible and bloodying up the bad guy before they can do the same to him. And for me, they're going to be the quintessential faction of they have to hit first, because if they don't, they're going to be penalized.
Yeah. When you're dealing with, since they're all brutes, right, they're not going to have the same numbers on the field.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're going to have to be very careful how they get their units onto the board, which ones come on when, and how to actually implement them properly. They have some like overt synergies that are easy to work with. Like if you have a unit that's all Tengu, they get flying.
Yeah.
So that means they can actually kind of hop around a little bit better. You've got some obviously defensive units like the Kappa, right? Which are the turtles, by the way, if anyone doesn't know.
Yes.
But it's going to be really interesting to see them play. But if you're interested in a low model count army, this is yours.
That you can really, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the paint jobs, some of the high-end paint jobs on these guys. They're going to be off the hook, especially when they start getting, I know they have to have a Chinese dragon somewhere in their hip pocket.
Oh my
that
God.
they're going to release. It's going to come out. And when it does, I will lose Pam forever.
Yeah.
She will be like, Wadruna, I don't know what they are. Here, take all these boxes. They're dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, orcs on dinosaurs, whatever.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
just go ahead and take that Chinese dragon, please.
Yeah, you go ahead, noob. I'll take these. Yeah.
Yeah, and the stuff they're planning for it is crazy. And by the way, if you are interested in this faction, they do have a limited time print of their Artisan series, right? No, the Founder series, Kitsune, which may be one of the most beautiful models I've seen them create. I mean, it is so elegant. It's, the nine-tailed fox lady, and she's like looking at a scroll, but there's a bunch of tiny little cute foxes running around her. It's inspired. So they're only running that through March.
Yep.
So you want to get on that if you're going to.
Yep. And that segues us into the hobby and the where to go from here section of Conquest. One thing, if you see something that says Founders on it, that is the only FOMO thing that Parabellum does.
Only one.
Those are limited edition, and usually once they're gone, and they don't redo them except in very limited, or if it really makes sense to bring it back because of changes they've made. They may or may not do another print run, but very rarely do they do that. So Founder stuff is the FOMO stuff. And to their credit, none of the Founder stuff is stuff that you cannot achieve with the normal models.
Mm-hmm.
All of those models are just simply alternate awesome sculpts.
Yep.
They are not, I didn't buy it when it came out, so I will never have that for my army, and I really need it. No, that's not going to happen.
No.
So just some hobby notes. When you're building and playing, it's going to seem very obvious to you to glue the individual models into the 4-man stands or the cavalry stands. It's going to seem real. Why wouldn't you do that? Use a magnet, magnetize them, don't glue them, because you want to be able to pull these things off to play First Blood.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you probably don't need all of them. You can, if you have a unit of 12, you can probably glue down 8 of them, 2 stands, and have the other 4 sitting free, but definitely think about which ones you don't glue. And I would basically make the command stand with the unit leader and the standard bearer. Definitely don't glue those down because you want those for First Blood. As you are building these units, doesn't matter whether they're cavalry or the infantry stuff, as you are building them, and you're free to build these things however you want.
Yep.
These are, very, they're not like GW models where this peg has to go into this hole and that's the pose, period. These, you can put the arms where you want them. For the most part, it's not across the board, but be careful as you're building them, test fit them onto the stands, because you can do like I did with my Bow Chosen and make it to where it's a puzzle to put them all on the stand. So
some of them are just like that a little bit, like the Kedis and the Moroi for Old Dominion. They're like little ghost dudes, right? Yeah. So one of them like throws fireballs and they have hoods. The other one have daggers. The ones with the fireballs are just ridiculous to try and put together.
Yes.
So sometimes I have to sit there and like slot their arms, and they're all like dancing these weird poses. So it's it could be fun. But that's one of the things that Parabellum actually makes themselves are the magnetized bases.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect solution there. Some folks don't play First Blood whatsoever. And so you'll see, like, if you look at some tournament stuff, that people will sometimes just do a single base for their one hero, so it's like, instead of like the one you have where it's in the middle, they'll do all this stuff to fancy it up, so it's just a single model that can't be removed. It's up to you if you want to do that or not, but Parabellum sets you up for success there.
Yes, they do. And they are starting to phase out the old stands in favor of the new magnet capable stands, which is so nice. Just so wonderful. But I mean, you can just glue magnets to the bottoms of the bases and little strips of metal to the stands and achieve the same thing with the older stands. So it's super easy. You'll see it. It goes together super easy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
As far as where do you go from here, if you want lore, Doug over at 2 Plus Tough YouTube, He did some phenomenal series on breaking down the lore of Conquest. In fact, he's what got me into Conquest, and then, infected Josh. So, but yeah, he covers the lore absolutely 100% spot on.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't want to read through the website, just go over to 2 Plus Tough. If you look around Etsy, I would suggest first buy the squad sprayer, and then you can look around. There's some really great tools for Conquest, and there's like the wheel tool.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a set of those from a guy in France. Just absolutely 100% awesome. Mm-hmm. It just makes wheeling your units so much easier, and it's definitely worth, because the wheeling rolls when you're moving and you want to turn a unit that is 3 bases long, it can become cumbersome to do that measurement without a tool.
Yeah.
With the tool, it's a simple case of line up the base where it stands, move the base to where it should be. If they do a 3-inch wheel, boom, you're done.
Done.
It's simple. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it saves so much time. And as you're building and as you're getting into the game, jump into the army builder, kind of look at what you want, and then buy your stuff.
Yep.
It's typical for any game. That applies to everything from GW and Kill Team and Corvus Belli, you name it. Have an idea before you just go out willy-nilly and buy stuff, unless you're me, in which case you're just dumb. So,
I mean, this game, I don't think will punish you for rule of cool. Like, you'll see some things and just be like, that is 100% my aesthetic. I'm going all in on that one. It's just a matter of what models within the faction, right? Like, 100 Kingdoms is cool, but it's just not me, right? I'm not interested in playing them whatsoever. But, I went out and got a first blood's worth of Wadroon, right? And by first blood's worth of Wadroon, it is the Matriarch Queen on the T-Rex and 3 Raptor Riders, because hell yeah, that's awesome. Literally dropped $170 just for first blood because I wanted the T-Rex and the Raptor Riders.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
Dino mommy list, right? Yeah, I mean, they have the cool other stuff right on the sides, right? Like the army faction packs. Right?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes they're alternate art cards, things like that. Ways to just sort of enhance your in-game hobby.
Yeah,
right?
I would definitely suggest, if you're going to get into the game, go out and get the faction pack for the faction that you've chosen. And they come in waves. The current one right now is wave 6. And literally it is a pack of cards that has alternate art for all the units in the faction, but also it comes with these awesome, cool little cards, one of which shows all the spells that are available. So you can have that so you don't forget what spells you have available to you. Now, they don't put the text of the spells on the card. Mm-hmm. I made some cards for my Nords and for my 100 Kingdoms that has the full text from the rule book, just so that I had a memory jogger right there. Mm-hmm. But just having those cards that come in the pack is so handy, because you don't forget, I have Fruit of the Gods. I forgot about that spell.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing to have. And also you can kind of plan out what you're going to cast.
Yeah.
So those are super cool packs to have. Plus the alternate art cards are very, very nice. And they used to have the scenarios, but now that they are refining and redesigning all the scenarios for the game, they left those cards out, which makes a lot of sense, actually. So now what they've done is they've actually put some of the faction ability cards in there so that you have an instant, at a glance, look. Oh, that's right. I have Blood of the Einhard, and this is what that does.
Yeah.
So super handy packs, but very, very nice to have. Very, and they're inexpensive. They're not, it's not a premium branded product.
Yeah.
It's just super handy to have, especially if you have multiple units. And I know in the rules, it basically says if you have 2 of the same unit and the card comes up in the command stack, you can activate either one that's on the board.
Yeah.
So it's not a limiting factor. But if you have the 2 different art cards, you can kind of keep in your mind, if you want to play that way in your head canon, you can be like, okay, the alternate art card is this unit and the normal art card is that unit.
Yeah.
And when it comes up, I will try to make sure I only activate the one that it corresponds to. Although the rules do not require you to do that.
Yeah.
So that's Conquest in a nutshell, which literally was a 90-minute nutshell, but
And we're not even like we scratched the surface. This is getting started, right? So there's so much depth to it, but I hope you enjoyed just the overview, gave you an idea of where to go next. Certainly, after listening to this, we've got the dedicated Conquest channel on our Discord, so feel free to reach out and talk to us there. There's also the Parabellum Discord, which is one of the most active I have ever seen, and they have channels dedicated to playing each individual faction.
Yes.
And also the lore for each individual faction. And a lot of their announcements will go up there as well. Yep. So highly recommend checking out their Discord.
And you can ask the dumbest questions on their Discord, and very rarely will you get the response of, just look in the history, idiot. Somebody will actually be like, hey, here's that post. Here's a link to it. We're not going to cover it again.
Yeah. But they'll get you there, right? And they're not jerks about it.
No.
But yeah, very active community on there. Hope you take or give Conquest a shot if you haven't already, because boy howdy, it is one of the better tabletop games I've played.
And if you hate rank and flank, give it a try.
Yeah,
because I will tell you, it will probably change your mind about rank and flank.
Changed my mind.
Yeah,
changed my mind. So that's what we got here. Bill, what's coming up next?
Well, I don't know. I was just going to spring that on you and see, perhaps next time we may just do a BattleTech Alpha Strike getting started.
I tell you what, I know nothing about it, so I will be learned just like everyone else. BattleTech Alpha Strike is the simpler version, right?
Yes.
That is much more accessible before you get into
the tabletop measure in inches, not the hex map, not classic BattleTech where you have page worth of, oh my God, you have a little card. It has armor and structure, and it plays in 1/10 of the time.
All right.
So much fun.
Well, I'm excited for that, folks. So look forward to that for next time. But for those of you who do join us for this next part, we'll see you after dark.
The Albuquerque Narrative Gamers Podcast, or Anger Podcast, is protected under the Creative Commons license. You can find information for this at creativecommons.org. Information and links about the show's topics will be in the show notes, as will any other copyright information that needs to be presented.